to the west, pile the notice on. Near the west, touch it and notice. Ooh, near the west, switch it and notice. Hoy, hoy.
All right, hello, my beauties and bees. Welcome to another installment of The Sting. I've been trying to revitalize an old show where I look at some modern, current science claims that are coming around. Last week, of course, we looked at the telepathy tapes and all the pseudoscientific claims that are made there. This week's a little bit different, though. This week's there is actually some science involved here, but there's also some I don't know, we call it sleight of hand. But we're talking about the colossal dire wolf creations. What are they? What are we looking at? Is this a real dire wolf? Is this a actual extinct Pleistocene animal brought back from thousands of years in the grave? Well, we're gonna look at what the claims that they're making. And I don't want to do it by myself, so I invited some friends along. So here we have Dr. Dino and Grayson Hawk. Good evening, gentlemen.
Yo.
Do you all want to
Hello.
tell them introduce yourselves real quick before we get into things? I'll start with Doc and work our way forward.
Sure. Howdy there, folks. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Dino, or Doc for short. I'm a paleontologist and small-time science communicator, though I'm trying to grow my channel, trying to teach more people more things about dinosaurs and rocks and extinct life, which is relevant to this particular stream. Well, maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not anymore. We'll have to see. And I'm here with my co-host, this giant thermos that I drag out to the field every time I go hunting for fossils.
Nice.
And that's
You
me.
gotta hydrate.
Very important.
Have to hydrate.
And Bree, I actually have an idea for what we should call this instead of a dire wolf. How about a Game of Thrones cosplay, or maybe a genetic monstrosity?
That's what I was just saying to Doc right before you popped in, was that they were more focused on making making Ghost from Game of Thrones than they were
100%.
making a real dire wolf. But
So my name is Grayson Hawk. My channel name is also named Grayson Hawk. That's like my real first and middle name. And yeah, I make videos on the internet debunking and debating against pseudoscience, which it pains me to say this. I don't think that the actual science here is pseudoscience, but the way that it is being sold is not what it actually is. So I don't even know what to categorize this as. Like, what they're telling us it is not what it is. It's not a freaking direwolf. I'm sorry if I'm coming out. I'm coming out hot off the gate. I'm maybe spoiling what we're going to talk about, but I'm heated on this. I just recorded a video about this earlier today, so the thoughts are very fresh on my mind.
it's almost like the closest thing I can compare it to is like an Elon Musk kind of promise about what he.
Oh, did you see
created.
what Elon Musk said about this? Like,
No.
because Elon Musk retweeted this and
Of
was
course
like,
he did.
I can't wait. He said, I can't wait until I can have my own, or I think he asked the question. He said, how long until I can have my own miniature woolly mammoth pet?
The only
Yeah.
thing that these dire wolves are going to be good for is feeding oligarchs too. So, did I say that out loud?
So I'm sorry, but having a mini woolly mammoth is actually a plot point in the book of Jurassic Park, which, gee, a lot of people have been bringing up. In the book, Hammond has a pet dwarf elephant that they genetically created, and it has a ton of health problems.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
And it's like a really evil little thing he did. So,
which is
that's
what
great. Real life is imitating fiction now. Great.
which is what
apparently.
we're gonna run into, which is the thing that's really popping off about this too with these wolf pups is that the health problems and the health problems that and the risk to the surrogates that they're using. But let's start off by looking at you all want to look at their we're gonna look at their website now. It goes through really fast. I'm going to say seizure warning right now. You might look away if you're susceptible to seizures because their website is really graphic. Maybe a little bit over the
They
top.
really went nutty with the graphic design.
Yeah, it's like this is worse than the old Pokemon game they used to complain about giving kids seizures, but it really goes over the top. But this is Colossal Laboratories and Biosciences. They focus on de-extinction. More recently, until the dire wolves kind of took the forefront, they've been talking about recreating the mammoth, the thylacine. What else? What there was one more. The dodo, was it?
Yeah, the dodo.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's been their focus, but they're using the same kind of techniques that they used to clone embryos, like way back in the '90s when they made Dolly the sheep. Right? It's the same processes, but with their dire wolves, there's this special ingredient that's called no dire wolf. But I'm not going to spend too much time on their highly graphic website. I'm going to go ahead and pop over to one of their videos because they have a YouTube channel too, and I think that just letting them talk and tell us what they think, or let them present their case. Now, I looked at the time.
Well, just their video has a lot of music in it. Are you sure it'll be safe for your channel?
Well, I'll try to stop every 20 to 30 seconds just to be safe. That's why I said it's probably gonna. In every line that they speak, we're gonna have to stop and like go over and break down because there's a lot. It's they're selling you here. They're selling you something. There's a product here, but I digress. Let's let them dig their own hole.
Everyone likes to talk about the climate crisis, but we are actually in a biodiversity crisis, and that's absolutely critical to our way of life. So if all of these species go extinct, then we'll have full ecosystem collapse.
Some scientists have estimated that by 2050.
So right off the bat, like I said, they're not going to get 20 seconds in. They're going to say something. There's pinpointing that there's so many different species that they could be focusing on bringing back or restoring or recovering instead of the dire wolf is part of my biggest concern here. My biggest problem with them choosing this species. There's even species that have gone extinct in the last 50 years or so. Like the thylacine's a good example, but yeah.
2050, half of all species that are alive today will be extinct. The truth is that extinction happens. Extinctions have happened throughout evolutionary history. But right now, the rate of extinction is estimated to be 1,000 to 10,000 times faster than the base rate in the fossil record. And a lot of that is our fault. We need...
So how do you guys feel about the Anthropocene? Do you think this actually counts as a period because of our extinction event?
Yeah.
Creating a boundary?
I wouldn't count it as a new period, but we're definitely going through a mass extinction.
Yeah. This started about 500 years ago, or no? Well, there was a mass extinction 10,000 years ago, and then there was it was colonialism, the age of exploration that set off the latest one, because that's when we started wiping out all the megafauna on the big islands, like the moa and the elephant bird.
And I think starting in like the 1500s, I'd say probably.
The Polynesians wiped out a lot of stuff in like the 12th century too, though. like the Mycosuchus, the Moa, Host eagle. I shouldn't say they wiped it out, but they contributed to its decline.
I think in several 100 million years, whenever they're looking at the geologic record, it'll be pretty clear that this is we've passed the boundary into a distinctly different period.
Yeah, maybe.
With different fauna.
But then again, also at that time, like it'll just look like a little blip on the radar between the Ice Age extinctions and this one.
Yeah. Like they might consider this like a 10,000 year long extinction event, which could still be contributed all, as an Anthropocene extinction event, because the one 10,000 years ago, I think we had a heavy hand in too. So, or 8,000 years ago, is it? I did know it's
10 to 15.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's a little bit of a sideways conversation to the video itself, I guess. It's like, regardless of whether or not we're in an extinction event or not, the company is I think that the reasons that they're giving right now are totally BS. I mean, nobody's going to have a $10 billion valuation for your company if your entire mission statement is just reintroducing extinct animals and conserving like biomes that don't exist anymore. This is the most highly valued company in Dallas. The people are not investing in this company with the understanding that that is all that they're going to do, or even their primary goal in doing what they do.
Yeah. A solution.
See, just even this title here, this title card is just disingenuous. It's not a de-extinction if it's not a direwolf.
Colossal is the world's first de-extinction company, and we combine de-extinction with species preservation, and our goal is to make extinction a thing of the past.
Colossal Biosciences
develops cutting-edge technology to protect biodiversity and reverse human caused extinction.
People think it's a scary word, de-extinction.
And I also want to say this isn't a new concept either. They've been working on trying to reverse engineer like the aurochs, the cow ancestor, right? That's a focus of a few different projects. They've been trying to reverse engineer the ancestor of horses, of modern horses. There's a lot of different projects going on to do de-extinction. So to say that they're the first to do it, maybe they could say they're the first to do it with a Pleistocene genome, but even what they're doing is very different than what we see people doing with the aurochs or the how do you say Przewalski horse? I don't want to say it wrong. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know you're talking about. Is it a Polish word?
It's
or a Polish name.
It's somewhere in the Caucasus. I don't know. In the steppes there. Yeah.
Immediately put us with Jurassic Park, and it's not. We're trying to develop these new techniques in order to save animals, in order to bring back animals that in some cases were our fault that we don't have them anymore.
Why not the ones in all cases? This is actually like the scene from Jurassic Park where they're having the argument and he's like, condors. If I brought back a flock of condors, no one would bat an eye.
It really is.
It's like, yeah.
No, it literally is Jurassic Park in every way. Like that. I mean, how else are you going to get $10 billion worth of investment? People that are investing in this company are expecting a return on their investment from future earnings of the company. How are you going to earn money by releasing extinct animals back into the back into the wilderness? And conservatism is not a moneymaker. It doesn't warrant a $10 billion valuation. Like, I have a personal theory. I kind of talked about this in the video, but I'll just basically spoil what I talked about earlier here. I think there's two reasons behind what they're doing. Number one, designer zoo animals. They're trying to sell these animals to zoos. Zoos don't want to buy an extinct condor, an extinct animal that nobody's ever heard about. Zoos want to buy the extinct animals that the people want to see, which means the animals that the people know about. So the big ones.
Even if what people know about it was actually a mythical creature version with the same name instead of the actual animal that lived during the...
Oh, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. As long as it's got the IP, the name brand recognition, it's the same reason they're remaking all these movies like the Minecraft movie, right? They're trying to make movies that people already know about, so that they want to go see it because they already have some knowledge, and that stirs people's curiosity more than a totally new story or concept. It's the same here. They want to, you know, give people what they want to see that was previously unseeable, only fantasy or fiction.
Right.
So like they don't care if they're bringing back the fantasy Game of Thrones version of a direwolf, because hey, that's the one that people want to see more than the real direwolf anyway.
Yeah. Hopefully I fix my audio. It gets crazy when I use Streamlabs, but I haven't completely transferred everything over to Talk Studio. So hopefully we're not all that out of balance.
And that was just the first reason. I have a second reason that I speculate why they're doing this, but maybe I'll unpack that later, so I don't just like word vomit everything all at once.
Right, we got a lot to get through, but I did say we have to stop a lot, so I'm glad you're willing to be verbose about this, because that's what I want. I want the response of the paleo community to be heard. That's why I invited you two assholes here, so to tear this apart, because I knew you would have some things to say about it. I'm kind of glad that you were in the field when this dropped, so this is all like fresh to you, Doc.
Yeah, maybe we should get that out there. So at least for me, this news dropped right before I went out in the field yesterday, so I made a little short on my channel about it. Just because I saw it, I watched the videos, I looked at their website. From a glance, it seems like they did what they said they did.
Yeah.
But
well, we will dive in and see. Let's keep going here.
I am basically as blind as any member of the audience right now. Other than that, I've seen the headline, is where I am.
Any longer. It wasn't a climate problem, it was a human problem.
I think we all share the deep concern about what's happening to biodiversity, what's happening to the planet, what's happening to people whose lives have been intertwined with wild nature since before time began. And so coming together is so exciting.
But how does a no longer existent biome like the mammoth steppe benefit the biomes that we're losing right now? What we're losing right now as far as biodiversity should be the focus, as opposed to trying to recover a biome that just doesn't exist anymore. It's cute to have little rewilding projects, you know, ranches where they have yaks and wild horses and stuff running around, camels or what have you, megafauna. But instead of trying to recover the mammoth steppe, we should focus on trying to recover some of the biomes that are disappearing now. So it's like the Great Plains, which is shrunk. Or I think last time I looked, it was like 70% due to agriculture, things like that.
So exciting, because I think that's how we can really drive change.
We're finding solutions.
And obviously, deforestation is a whole nother issue. That's why I tried to pick a biome that wasn't forest, because that's a whole nother situation to think about. And it's not as prevalent in areas where a dire wolf might be, or might be comfortable, but I just don't understand where they're going to put these animals other than zoos, which seems to be the point.
Is to restore a species back to the wild. The purpose of that is to serve an ecological function. As we lose species within an ecosystem, if you think of a Jenga puzzle, you're sort of pulling blocks out of there. Those blocks that are creating the instability in the ecosystem is literally the function that animal plays. If we can find ways to restore animals that provide that specific function, we can create more stability within an ecosystem.
We've announced 3 species, the woolly mammoth, the thylacine, and the dodo. But one of the things that's absolutely critical to ecosystems is predators, as we've seen with what's happened in Yellowstone with the reintroduction of wolves back into the park. They've shown that they've even reshaped the river systems. They've brought back beavers, they've brought back songbirds. And so and
this is all real ecology that worked, and science that actually panned out for them. And they're piggybacking on that with this GMO wolves that they made.
All that is involving actual natural species of wolves being reintroduced into environments where they previously existed. That is not what we're talking about here. I mean, I don't know when we're going to get to the science in this video, but I'm dying to get to the science.
Yeah, they meander a lot appealing to emotion. There's like I said, there's even an appeal to like Native American tradition and stuff that gets really kind of cringy. But I'm going to speed this up just so we get through this a little bit quicker and into the science part.
Really quick. The only animal I know of on their list that this argument could even vaguely apply to is the thylacine. Like, not the dire wolf, but the thylacine. You could maybe make this argument if there has been, and I'm sure there has been, an effect on Tasmanian ecosystems.
Right. The thylacine you can make the same argument like as to returning wolves to Yellowstone, but
yes,
and you could probably with Mauritius, it's you couldn't, because Mauritius that existed for the dodo doesn't exist anymore. So you can't recover an ecology that's already been driven to extinction. There's no coming back from all those Pacific and Indian islands, and to a lesser extent the Caribbean, after they were colonized. There's just no backpedaling on that.
Yeah,
we thought that was very important.
Right, you can't get. That's Australia's problem too. You can't get the cats out, foxes. They got horses and camels too.
For us to bring back the dire wolf.
The dire wolf is the first species that we're bringing back at Colossal.
Press X to doubt here, my friends, because if you're going to bring back a dire wolf, and this is something I wanted to vent about just real quick, if you're going to bring a dire wolf back, the best species to use as a surrogate for it, and as a genetic surrogate too, would be a dhole from which is a small canid from Asia that is the closest relative to the dire wolf. If nobody,
I mean, would there be a concern with if the dhole could properly gestate the embryo?
Well, I think that the ideal situation would be they take the generational time to slowly increase the size of the species selectively, without make smaller dire wolves first, and then kind of selectively breed for larger and larger size, or make new GMO organisms for a larger size. That's reasonable, but using the genus Canis, even the genus that dholes are in is not the same genus that dire wolves were in. They're just closer related to each other than they are. Either one of them are to Canis, which is gray wolves, red wolves, coyotes, Ethiopian wolves, Arabian wolves. Those are the species that are in Canis. Domestic dogs are in Canis. But dholes are not in Canis, like African hunting dogs or African wild dogs, whatever you want to call them. The spotted fellows from Africa that live in the big packs. They're not canids, right? And they're not in Canis, and neither are dire wolves. So you're doing a hybrid like this, hybridization with genetics. You generally want to try to stay within the genus. The only hybrids that I can think of that go outside of the genus level are, the puma pard, which is subfamily. So that's a leopard and a puma. And then there's wolfins, which is a false killer whale and a dolphin.
There is at least one major exception to that. Apparently, on accident, there was a hybrid made of a sturgeon and a paddlefish.
Oh yeah, they're separated from 300 million years. I heard about that.
Yeah, it's insane, but somehow they can hybridize.
Yeah, I mean, a camel and a llama.
That's not a mammal.
A camel and a llama can be hybridized, but they can't hybridize naturally. They have to artificially create them.
The dire wolf, which most people think is just a mythical creature, was actually a keystone species that was not only endemic to the United States and mostly Americas, but it was actually culturally important to some of the biggest indigenous early tribes in America. So we thought if we could use it as an opportunity where we can also develop technologies that can help wolves, we thought it was the right first project, given how important wolves are to ecosystems.
See, that was just a hint at the appeal to Native American traditions. Yeah, apparently the Clovis people need to have representation in the current biome. Are we going to bring back the Clovis people too?
Now that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
One of the challenges when we started working on the direwolf was that we knew of only 2 direwolf specimens in the world that contained some usable DNA. One of our direwolf samples was a single tooth, and then another was a 72,000-year-old skull. So we were able to use these specimens and isolate this ancient DNA out of them.
For the direwolf, there was a massive study that did many samples across multiple institutions, and Colossal took 2 of those samples and was able to generate whole genome sequences from each. And so this is incredible for any species, let alone species that have been extinct. So what you can do is you can map that to its closest living relative. So Colossal are using the gray wolf.
So no, they just they mapped part of the genus or the genome in the canid, and then they matched that up with that same gene in the gray wolves, and then basically pulled that expression out through within the cloning process, is my understanding. Grayson said that he ranted about this earlier, so I'm welcome to hear a little bit of venting about the science so far.
I mean, yeah. So they did start from ancient direwolf genomes, like they were like not full genomes, but fragmentary genomes from those 2 samples. Like they started by looking at like actual legit direwolf genes, and then instead of like, you know, putting the genes from the direwolf in the gray wolf, which would have resulted in genetic deformities like blindness and deafness, they say. Like they say that when they actually put the genes from the direwolf into the gray wolf, it's like blind and deaf. So instead of actually putting the genes in there, what they did is like analyze, oh, well, here are some of the amino acid sequence differences between the gray wolf version of the protein and the direwolf version of the protein. So let's go in with CRISPR and just pick 14 of the sites that we think are the most phenotypically relevant of the amino acid substitutions. And let's just go in and make those substitutions with CRISPR into the gray wolf genome. So they're not inserting the actual genes. They're just doing individual, like, you know, individual substitutions, 14 of them.
Modifications to match
modifications. Yeah, they're just modifying the gray wolf genes to basically look more like the proteins from the direwolf, but it's just like trying to figure out, oh, well, it looks like this amino acid sequence might be biochemically relevant, so let's make the substitution here. And it's just saying, okay, these are the 14 that we think are going to have the biggest phenotypic effects that we want, which is a wolf that looks like Ghost from Game of Thrones. So, like, for example, there were 3 different genes that controlled the fur color that they isolated for the direwolf, but they couldn't implant any of those genes into the gray wolves because it would be blind and deaf and just a horrible mutant. Not that, you know, blind and deaf people are horrible mutants, but they would be mutating these wolves in ways that you don't want.
Detrimental,
and
yeah.
They basically just genetically engineered a completely new type of protein inspired by the direwolf proteins, but that never existed in a direwolf or a gray wolf or any other thing. And these new genes are like specifically just so that they can make it look white, even though the original direwolves probably were not white.
Yeah, I actually think that that from the genome, they could, if they wanted to do something cool, they could actually try to find out what color expressions the direwolf did have. That would be a good use of the genetic material they're pulling out of.
Well, they couldn't do that though, right? Because you would only be able to determine that in the full context of like how these genes would express in a direwolf's genome, given like the rest of the genome, all the regulatory factors, the non-coding sequences, like how this expresses in a direwolf's phenotype is obviously different than how it expresses in the gray wolf genotype, because when they tried to express it in the gray wolf, it literally just like became blind and deaf. So,
which is why I think that a dole would have been a better option. But I don't know if that would have fixed the genetic incompatibility of the protein manipulation that they were doing.
Like, it depends on, like, the way that a gene is expressed is going to be different depending on the context for the rest of the biochemical environment that gene is being expressed in. So, like, yeah, I mean, this is just a complex, chaotic system, and they freaking were. It's like they just gave up and were like, well, okay, well, we can't put the direwolf genes in it, so what kind of mutations can we do to these gray wolves that make them have a different color fur? And they were just aiming for, like, I don't know. They said that the gray wolves have lighter color fur, but not white. But then the genes that they created basically just suppress the, like, the
melanin,
red. Yeah, exactly. It just suppresses the pigment into the wolves to make them white. It just has nothing to do with dire wolves. It's just genetic cosplay.
Yeah, which is what we see with the aurochs, right? With when people make the modern aurochs, it's genetic cosplay as well. They say reverse engineering,
just, like,
but
one last point that I'll make on the genetics of this is that even if they were to take every single gene from the dire wolf and substitute every single gene of the gray wolf, every single one, it still wouldn't be a dire wolf, because there's all of the non-coding DNA that would be totally different. So if you're going to do like a genomic comparison between that and a dire wolf, it would still cluster with other members of the Canis genome, or a genus. Like, it's not like, it's like a completely different genus.
Yeah, there's going to be different recessive genes that pop up that a dire wolf just wouldn't have had, right? In the bloodline, it's going to be the fact that these wolves could, because they're part dog too. We haven't got that far yet, but they're part dog too, because
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I should let it play. We're only 4 minutes in, and we're 35 minutes into the videos, or into the stream, so I knew you guys were going to be excited about, or going to be passionate about this. I love it.
Gray wolf, and we've been able to generate such a high-quality genome that we can map back to create our own direwolf reference genome.
When we edit different lines of genetically diverse gray wolves, we'll create a set of genetically diverse dire wolves with similar edits, but the basis of their diversity already existed within the gray wolf.
Gray wolves are on the endangered species list, and that means you can't just go in and collect the samples that we want.
Typically, people have to take a ear punch or a skin biopsy, and sometimes it's a very invasive process for the animal. We've developed a technology where you can take a simple blood draw, isolate these specific cells in the blood, and then clone from it.
We're changing the genome of this living animal.
And I'm not here to disparage their cloning process. Just don't lie about what you're cloning, what you're creating with your cloning process, right?
Well, I think that's where the actual money maker is, at least in terms of, like, from the perspective of the investors. I'm pretty sure that this whole thing is just being used as a cover so that they can, like, get the permissions to do the kind of genetic experiments that they're doing right now under the guise of conservatism and bringing back extinct species. But in reality, they're honing the techniques used for genetic engineering of living species, just pretending like they're doing it for some environmentalist cause.
Yeah.
It's literally the same playbook that Tesla used in order to get government contracts, pretending like they were some big environmentalist kind of company. It's just same playbook.
Oh yeah, I draw the comparison to the things that other big tech bros have been saying to get funding. Like, when we're gonna have the solar powered roads and things like that. It's just,
yeah. I mean, they're totally just like, the people that are investing in this are hoping that they're going to refine the process of genetic engineering, so they have some sort of like CRISPR 2.0 type technology that's going to be super marketable, that's coming out of this process of bringing back extinct animals. And they're sort of betting on, well, look, if, like, we're able to do all this that we couldn't legally do if we were not trying to bring back an extinct species, right? They wouldn't be able to do these experiments on a living species unless they were selling it like, oh, we're doing conservation work, we're bringing back extinct species. Like, if they were just doing these experiments on a living species without that goal, they would never be able to, like, get the permission to do this.
Right. So they got to sensationalize it enough for the investors. They are, and when we'll get to that too, there is stuff that they're doing that I'm, like, okay with, but we'll get to it. There's a lot here. We got this video, and there's one more that I wanted to touch on for sure, but
oh yeah, I mean, I'm generally, like, pro research into genetic engineering. I just think that the way that they're doing it is incredibly shady.
And I want to say, oh, go ahead, Doc.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do want to say, because I see John Fapiano out there saying, "Let's turn chickens back into dinosaurs." There was a research project like that with kind of trying to reverse engineer theropod characteristics into modern Maniraptorans. I think they did use
Also,
chickens.
chickens are already theropods and dinosaurs.
And Maniraptorans.
Yeah, no genetic engineering needed.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, like, let's say they actually did, like, bring back a dire wolf and they were selling them for museums. Is there anything really ethically wrong with that? I guess? Like, as long as they're not lying to their investors, is there anything wrong with them doing that?
I think that, zoos in general, there are ethical problems with keeping creatures in captivity like that.
Yeah. I actually had a debate with Leo Felius about that. It's been a while ago, but yeah, zoos, a lot of it depends on what the zoos do with their funding when they get it. If they're putting it back, if they keep a pair of spotted hyenas in the zoo, but they're donating, with the money that they make, they're donating to help retain spotted hyena habitat in Africa, and keep X amount of land available for the wild population to use. There's a balance there, but because people being aware of the animal, the species, and its plight being endangered is an important part of making sure that people are willing to put money into saving them. Like you saw that a lot with the way that China handled their pandas, and now they're up to their armpits in pandas. But the push was for public awareness, and to provide public awareness, allowing people to actually be exposed to the species, I guess, is important to some extent, right? Obviously, when you get down to the last breeding pair of some species, it's not optimal to have humans involved in any capacity, especially not keeping them from their natural habitat. But at some point, every species that has gone, every species of megafauna that's gone extinct for the last 50 years had the last specimens die in captivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is an argument that could be made, but for zoos. But I'm going to back off that. If anybody wants to debate me on it, we can do that. But
I'm not making an argument. I'm just
mm-hmm.
Asking, because like what you guys, or like with what you two are saying, like they're improving our understanding of genetics and how to modify genomes and alter creatures. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. My problem is with them lying in their promotional material and lying to investors. That's my issue with it.
I mean, I would have significantly less of an issue if they were straightforwardly telling what they're doing, except that would ruin their entire business model, because the whole thing is predicated on the public believing that they are unextincting these species. And if the public were to actually understand what they're really doing, then their business model would fail and they would not be getting investment like they're getting. So I know why they're lying. It's still, I just don't like the fact that they're lying. That's my main issue. If they were actually saying straightforwardly what they were doing, I would have less issues with it. But at the same time, I feel weird about them genetically engineering designer animals just for the entertainment of humans, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was definitely going to be a bridge on the way to to genetic engineering that actually has a positive impact on the world, right? Instead of just the bottom line. Once this technology becomes available for actual de-extinction and actual conservation efforts, that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I like how you were like, we got to watch the rest of this video quick. We're not making any progress. I think we made about 5 seconds of progress since you said that.
I don't shut up. Sorry.
To be fair, that's mostly my fault.
Well, we have to stop it like because these people are probably going to sue us anyway. We'll probably all get subpoenas in the mail.
Partially into the genome of the extinct animal for those genes that matter, for the traits and characteristics that we want to see in that animal.
Discovering which parts of the genome make an animal look and act like that animal is one of the hardest problems in biology. It is unsolved and something that we have to solve if we want.
There was some weasel words right there, though. I got to say, look like that animal, right? She kind of snuck it in there, but she does at some extent acknowledge that what they're doing is not actually bringing back an animal, but making modern animals look like their extinct relatives. Almost said ancestors. Could you imagine the freaking shade I'd get for saying something like that? Dire wolves were not the ancestors of gray wolves.
We want to know which parts of the genome we want to edit to make a gray wolf more like a dire wolf.
To analyze our genomes, to compare dire wolves with gray wolf genomes, we use our tools on a platform built by FormBio. It's a bioinformatics company that spun out of Colossal. They built this whole suite of analysis tools and algorithms that allow us to find the differences between the direwolf genome and the gray wolf genome and filter out these differences that we actually want to edit. And so we aligned our direwolf reads to the gray wolf genome. That allowed us to know exactly where the gray wolf differed from the direwolf. One of the most exciting differences that we found in the direwolf genome is that there is a change in the L-coral gene. L-coral is a key regulator of animal size.
Next, we have to use gene...
And that's another thing about Game of Thrones dire wolves, that they really misled people about what these animals were actually like. They were not giant wolves. They were
barely bigger.
They're roughly the same size as a gray wolf, a little more robust, like in the same way Go ahead.
I thought they were considerably more robust was the main difference.
No, I mean, I think the average is about 8 kilograms more. So, like the average gray wolf is about 60 kilograms. The average dire wolf is about 68 kilograms.
That's the same.
It's not that big of a difference.
That's the same difference between between a spotted hyena and a gray wolf too. Hyenas are about 10% larger. So yeah, these were hyena-sized wolves. Or large hyena-sized wolves. But there were giant hyenas too, so, do with that what you will.
And some of them lived in Britain.
That's true. They were the same species as spotted hyenas now. They were just a larger subspecies.
But you can see what they just explained in their method, where they're not actually taking any of the genes or proteins from a direwolf. They're saying, what's the smallest mutation that we can induce to make this protein look more like a direwolf protein, even though they're not going to be identical?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I keep talking about hyenas. I love hyenas though, but a cave hyena would have been a better option than a direwolf, because they're actually the same species as they're extinct subspecies of hyena, but there's tons of species.
Yeah, but I think
it would have been the better option if you assume that they're actually trying to bring back extinct species to reintroduce them to the environment, which there definitely is not their real goal.
Yeah.
Also, good luck ever getting the British government to okay releasing hyenas in England.
I didn't say I was going to ask their permission. I'm just going to do it.
Oh dear.
As many hyenas as I can get my hands on. All over the moorland. And then I'll have cryptic.
You're on notice, Great Britain.
And then I'll have CrypticCorner sightings for months about the British hyena invasion.
We have cells growing in a dish in a lab that belong to a gray wolf. And so these have gray wolf genomes. Now we've decided which part of that genome we want to change. So one at a time, we take our gene editing tools and we go into that cell and we cut out the bit of DNA that looks like a gray wolf and paste in its place the DNA that looks like a dire wolf.
Each time you edit the gene in a cell, you put a lot of stress on that cell because you have to get your gene editing tools in these cells and these changes are made. So what we do instead is we try to make dozens or hundreds of changes at once. It's called multiplex gene editing.
So now we have cells growing in a dish in a lab that have DNA that makes them a little bit more dire wolf-like than...
But they're completely 100% gray wolf. More dire wolf-like gray wolf genome.
Gray wolf-like. we have to transform these living cells into actual pups. And for that, we use a process called cloning, or somatic cell nuclear transfer. This is the same process that most famously brought us Dolly the sheep.
You take an egg, an oocyte, from a wolf or a dog, you take out its own DNA and you stick that direwolf cell in it.
It's not a direwolf cell, though. They just explained that they're direwolf-like gray wolf cells with like Grayson said, the protein shuffled around. Oh wow, we actually made it through 3 more minutes that time, guys. I mean, with just little cut-ins, but with no.
Like tangents. I like how they've smuggled in calling it direwolf. Like they started calling it, oh, it's direwolf-like. Oh, it looks like a direwolf. And now that we're halfway through the video, they're like, let's just start calling it a direwolf. Might as well.
They actually started off by calling it a gray wolf. These are gray wolf, and then this is gray wolf DNA, and then it's like, oh, we altered it to be direwolf-like. It's direwolf-like DNA. It's direwolf DNA. Let's stick the direwolf DNA and the wolf inside the wolf DNA, even though it was wolf DNA to start with.
That cell becomes an embryo that's a direwolf. It's no longer a domestic dog, which sounds totally science fiction. And with the help of a vet team, we then are able to surgically put this embryo back inside to this.
There was the lie, right? I mean, that's the rub right there. What she just said. I want to hear her say it again, actually.
Surrogate dog.
Yeah, like
we have to find an appropriate dog that can carry our direwolf.
Will not let me rewind. Yeah. So, right here.
You stick that direwolf cell in it.
That cell becomes an embryo that's a direwolf. It's no longer a domestic dog, which sounds totally science fiction. And with the help of a vet team.
Right.
That's so weird, because if you were going to give it a DNA test, it would come back as Canis familiaris.
Right. There would be no direwolf detected if you ran a DNA test on it. It'd be like, hey, this is a GMO gray wolf. This has been genetically modified to have this coloration and this size and what have you.
Vet team, we then are able to surgically put this embryo back inside to the surrogate dog.
We have to find an appropriate dog that can carry our direwolf.
Everyone is thinking very critically about each step so that when that pup is finally born, we know there aren't any issues.
The safety of all of our surrogates for any of our species is the highest priority. We have an overemphasis on our animal husbandry team to secure their safety, as well as are pursuing on the science side our own exogenous development team so that one day we won't have to use surrogates.
The most exciting part is when the vet team comes in, they do their ultrasound and they say, yeah, congrats, you're gonna be a puppy mom, or you're gonna have a...
Sorry, I just processed that. What did she mean by exogenous what?
I can go back. How far back was it? I didn't catch that word.
Within the last 10 seconds, I think.
Okay.
On the science side, our own exogenous development team so that one day...
Exogenous development team?
What does that mean? Exactly?
Like developing it outside of the body? I don't know.
Out of the womb? Or...
Like,
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal to get hung up on, but I have no idea what they're talking about. It's some sort of internal labeling for their different departments.
Yeah.
This is so what I think that the proper name for this would be like artificial horizontal gene transfer, but it's not even artificial horizontal gene transfer from the species they're claiming it's from. It's because we know our gene transfer, horizontal gene transfer happens. You know, we see it all over the animal kingdom. Viruses carry genes from one species to another, even across kingdoms, across different phyla altogether. But the idea that when it transfers that gene from one species to another, that species is then that, right? Like if a virus, we got a virus that had from I don't know, a parrot, that doesn't mean that you know, when you have your next generation and it's got that viral insert of parrot DNA, that your child will be a parrot. That's just not how that works.
That one day we won't have to use surrogates.
The most exciting part is when the vet team comes in, they do their ultrasound and they say, yeah, congrats, you're gonna be a puppy mom, or you're gonna have a cub on the ground in a couple weeks. After the pups are delivered, there's a care team in place. They're there to make sure that our direwolf pups are happy and healthy, and that mom has gone through delivery without any problems. And then we have another team that will ensure that our pups have the right dynamics. They have the right social structures.
I think those are red wolf pups right there. Aren't they cute?
I think so.
And red wolves are highly endangered. There's less than 100 of them. I think there's less than I know there's less than 100 of them. I don't want to say anything more than that without checking my citations. In a reserve in North Carolina, and that's it. Other than what are in these breeding programs, which Colossal is working on, but they don't need to genetically alter them. They can try to filter out some of the others, because the red wolf population is highly contaminated with, they're hybridized with coyotes and domestic dogs and gray wolves, so that their genome is already pretty fractured at this point. So if you're going to do anything to help wolves in general, the red wolves could sure use your assistance.
Yeah.
We're working actively right now with partners today to make sure that there are solutions and places for these animals to go in the future. And it's really important to say that all of this is done in this massive network.
It's critical to work with private landowners, local governments, indigenous people groups, and the public at large to do that in a way that's safe and publicly accepted, but also it's good for the ecosystem and the animals themselves.
What we're doing is having all of this collaboration in place well before we have these animals, and this is absolutely critical to making this work successful.
We're a part of the evolutionary stream of the planet. We're kin to every other species out there. And so because...
Yeah, I want to read what Brian Stevens is saying out here real quick. As of February 2025, there are an estimated 17 to 19 red wolves roaming in native habitats in the eastern North Carolina, with 16 known collared individuals and 270 in captive breeding facilities. Yeah, that's freaking sad. And as far as the wild populations, they are at high risk for hybridization with coyotes, which are non-indigenous to the eastern United States, but have over the last couple of centuries migrated and moved into the southeast United States after the eradication of the red wolves from the remainder of their habitat. And there was other subspecies too. There was the Florida black wolf. There was a species that lived in Texas that was unique, and they're all gone now. Oh, there was another red wolf species too, or subspecies. They had two subspecies of Canis rufus.
Because we have the ability to shape the world, I think we have a responsibility to correct our mistakes from the past.
What we do today is, I think, what the hope for the future is for biodiversity for nature. Instead of be on sort of the ground floor of creating a tool that will be the solution for our biodiversity crisis is the most motivating thought that I could ever have.
What we're doing at Colossal has never been done before.
I hope everyone around the world is leveraging the technologies that we develop here, and I hope that biodiversity loss and extinction is just a thing of the past.
The idea of being able to have dire wolves again is tremendously, personally exciting. And I think it's going to be exciting to a lot of people.
You're not going to have dire wolves again. No, you're going to have genetically modified gray wolves that, and they won't even be able to, that niche is gone. The megafauna predator niche in North America.
Yeah, I mean, it's so bad. It's just playing off people's hopes of like, oh, it'd be so cool to see a dire wolf again, and then it's just like, oh, well, you can, except it's like pretty much just dressing up a regular wolf as a dire wolf. It's like, it's a kind of ruse that could have been done in the 1800s, only now it's with 21st century tech.
And it's not even, dressed up as the dire wolves that the paleontology community is excited to see. It's dressed up as dire wolves that the George R.R. Martin community is excited to see.
Oh, and they've already done the photo shoots with these direwolf pups sitting on the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. These pups have already had a photo shoot with George R.R. Martin himself, and they've already been on Joe Rogan with these pictures too.
Yeah, and the younger of the three, which is the female, is named Khaleesi. Yeah. So there's it's very clear what's going on here in that. And in my opinion, you mentioned the Tasmanian tiger too as being one that you were excited about, and actually, like, the Tasmanian tiger used to be one of my favorite animals when I was a kid, and you would never, maybe Bree, you already know, but Doc, you will never guess what animal they're going to be trying to morph into something that looks like a Tasmanian tiger. I know.
Tasmanian devil?
No, it's so bad. It's like
that's what you would think. Doc, no. I don't know Well, I don't know if
it's a Dunart.
It's another.
I think I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
but
so Tasmanian wolves were the largest member of a group of the only completely predatory group of
I just looked it up. I think you saw my head tilt.
Yeah, exactly. That's it's a marsupial rodent looking thing.
It's basically a marsupial like a marsupial vole or hedgehog kind of animal.
Those are the
looking like a mouse.
Insectivores.
And they're going to be taking these mouse-looking things and thinking that they can mutate it into something that looks like a Tasmanian tiger.
Now, the thing is about marsupials, though, is that they give birth when their infants are bean-sized, right? Like the size of like a little, like maybe even as small as a grain of rice, is when they come out, when they give birth to them. And the fetus, because it's basically a fetus at that point, actually crawls from its mother's vaginal canal or cloaca, because the marsupial crawls up the mother and into the pouch, and that's where it grows. So it's not going to be the birthing the issue that's going to be the problem. It's going to be once that little guy crawls into the mommy Dunart's pouch and starts to grow. And I don't know what they have in mind for that. That's going to be
I'm sharing my screen for the audience so that they can see what a Dunart looks like, because we see how problematic it was even just putting dire wolf genes into a gray wolf. It was causing serious genetic abnormalities like blindness and deafness. And they're thinking that they can, through stepwise genetic augmentations, make this thing look like a Tasmanian tiger, which they couldn't even make a gray wolf look like an actual dire wolf. And they're they're expecting us to believe that they can turn this thing into a Tasmanian tiger, which...
Babe,
by the way,
pull that up. Pull the thylacine up too, so now that they can see the difference between the two.
Yeah. And by the way, like, we literally have the pictures of a thylacine, unlike with a direwolf. So like, we know what the end goal is. It should look like this. I would bet a substantial fraction of my net worth that they will not create something that looks like this.
No. Yeah, it's gonna be some.
Unfortunately,
it'll be like their woolly mammoth mouse hybrid that they made.
The first time I see a direwolf, oh my god.
Direwolf's a big fluffy dog that I probably wouldn't pet.
I think it's going to be amazing in a lot of ways.
I'm really excited to see the birth of this direwolf pup and all the hard work that all of the teams have contributed to. There's so many people that have had their hand in this that it's just fulfilling for us to see, okay, we did it. We produced something that is magnificent and science fiction at its finest.
Now, make no mistake about it. These fucking dogs are adorable. That's an adorable puppy. And I love him and wants to boop his nose. But he's not a direwolf.
I mean, it is the cutest genetic aberration I've ever seen.
Right.
When they're fully grown, like they're gonna have to like release like 3D scans of the bones, like, right?
Because they are grown. They're 6 months old now. We're gonna see it. We're gonna see.
Are they fully grown?
We're gonna see.
No,
they're 6 months
they're
old.
2 to 3 months old right now.
6 months old.
Oh, no, the older ones are, I think, 5 months.
Okay.
I think Khaleesi was 2 to 3 months is what I read. But
yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
The point I'm saying is no, they will not be releasing anything because they have not so far released anything. There's no peer-reviewed published papers about any of this. They haven't released any of their data. They're just doing interviews to the press about this. Like, they have not released any of their experimental methods, none of their data, nothing's published.
They almost why I paused it there. They focus so much on how these puppies howl, like saying, "Oh, that's a unique direwolf howl." What a load of nonsense! These are wolf pups howling for milk, for sustenance.
Yeah, you didn't play the clip, but the lady that has been on the interview, she's the head scientist at this team, and in another interview that she gave with ABC News, she said, "These things behave like direwolves. They look like direwolves, so they are direwolves." I'm like, oh, great. So they've changed the definition of what a species is in this lab.
Right. Is this
also behave like dire wolves?
Yeah, that's what she just claimed on like national television. Yeah.
We
And
have
it's literally the kind of arguments that the creationists make. Oh, this fossil looks like a maple leaf, so therefore it is a maple leaf, and there's no such thing as evolutionary change.
Yeah. And it's not like we haven't seen canids with the white gene expression like this naturally, or even artificially bred into a land race. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Someone I know let me know they were in the chat, so I was just waving to them.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
But they're not especially, they don't look especially robust to me, but there's a part 2 that I wanted to cover here too. And this was just released yesterday. I actually swapped another video I had planned for this out for this one because I saw it was released just yesterday. Oh, not that. Here we go. So here's where they do their basically here's the apologetics on why they do this. Okay? So be ready to have your heartstrings pulled. I will be right back. I'm going to go grab a pop.
Absolutely a symbol of hope. For one thing, to bring something back from extinction, it's a transformational moment in human history, right? This is something that's never been done before. But it's also extraordinary because along with the concept of moonshots and what they bring along the journey, you have the direwolf that comes back from extinction. But along the way, what you've done is you've learned all these things you need to know to help salvage populations that haven't gone extinct yet. That's the joy of it, right? You do something that is exciting and cool, but along the way, you have to invent technologies to get you to that moon, and the technologies turn out to have all these side benefits. There are many people who talk about the risks of going forward with some.
Yeah. Rip it open. Go ahead. Rip it open.
She just brought up the whole thing. That's how they're trying to sell this company. I mean, they're like, oh yeah, it's great that we're doing all this good conservation stuff, but imagine all the benefits that the technology that we're finding out along the way can do. You know, like they're just basically, you know, that's what the real company is after, and is what they're about. All this other stuff about conservationism and bringing back extinct species and stuff, that's just, you know, that's what they tell maybe the scientists to keep them busy in the lab, but you know, the executives know what the business is all about.
Right. This is sensationalization. Maya, you look like a movie star. Stop.
And I mean, granted, anytime you do make an advancement in science, yes, you do learn things and you can apply those to other situations. Like, that's how science works. But
how much suffering do you cause on the way as a factor, though?
Yeah. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Oh, goodness. That's the perfect quote for this. Before we close out, when we get done here with this one.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. But there it is. Yeah. That's another great quote from Jurassic Park. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but...
No, I did do it on purpose.
Yeah.
How many times do you think I've seen that movie?
I saw it in the theater when I was a child. I was 11.
I am jealous.
Yeah. I was like ecstatic. I remember like watching, they had like a Dateline special thing about the making of it. And I remember just watching that and being like glued to the screen. But yeah.
I remember watching it back when I was an unnucleated embryo before I was implanted with mutant Neanderthal genes.
Mutant Neanderthal genes? Well, it's actually a human genome with the proteins shuffled around to look like a Neanderthal. But
exactly.
But they failed, Grayson, because you look like a...
Yeah. Luckily, all of the health problems are internal.
Well, I mean, that's true for a lot of Neanderthals, too.
Yeah. That's true for Brie.
It might fail.
The first time
it might have
I remember seeing Jurassic Park, I was 3 years old. It's one of my oldest memories.
Oh,
I had a babysitter who knew I liked dinosaurs, so she decided the perfect movie to put on for the 3-year-old was Jurassic Park.
You know, you all keep talking how young you were when this movie came out. This is basically just abuse at this point.
Hey, Bree, did you take your pet dinosaur to see Jurassic Park when it came out?
I did. I rode Dino down to the. Actually, we did have a pet dinosaur when Jurassic Park came out, but it was a goose.
Oh, wait. Are you sure it wasn't a miniature woolly mammoth?
It was actually a goose, but it had been hybridized with Velociraptor DNA. Well, actually, it wasn't Velociraptor DNA, but it was goose DNA that had been modified to look like Velociraptor DNA. So modified Velociraptor DNA that was basically about Velociraptor DNA.
Velocigoose.
Velocigoose.
Have an unintended effect. It might grow out of proportion. If we're going to talk about risks, you also have to talk about the risk of doing nothing. And unfortunately, we know what that risk looks like. It looks like what we're doing now, which is watching.
Oh, a white rhino?
Look at this poor rhino that's alive, where it could have be eaten by direwolves right now.
How about bring the rhinos back, though? The northern white rhino just went extinct. That's a perfect example of something we could bring back.
Years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not sexy, though. Nobody's gonna want to go, and nobody's gonna be hyped about this because there's not a character in Game of Thrones. It's a black rhino.
Yeah, we need to add some woolliness to it.
Rhinos.
They're like woolly rhinos. Now, if we had an elasmotherium.
Actually, woolly rhinos are in Game of Thrones.
Are they? I don't remember them.
Are they?
Yeah, they are. They're just not in the show, but they're in the books.
Yeah, I know the mammoths were because the giants were.
I don't know if the mammoths were actually in the books, but the shaggy rhinos are.
Yeah.
They call them unicorns in the book.
Yeah. Lena says, well, what if it was white?
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, if it was white. If they made white rhinos that are actually white.
Oh, yeah. They don't bring back the black rhinos. They bring them back white.
Yeah.
They pull like a Gandalf with rhinos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm Rhino the White now.
Thousands and thousands of species on the brink of extinction.
Extinction is a colossal problem. Some scientists have estimated that by 2050, half of all species that are alive today will be extinct. The truth is that extinction happens. Species come and species go, and extinction has happened throughout evolutionary history. But right now, the rate of extinction is estimated.
Okay, that's the same thing she said before.
And a lot of that is our fault.
We're focusing on building technologies that can help conservation. We do not decouple de-extinction from species preservation. We think that they go hand in hand.
If we want,
well, I think that species preservation should come first, right? This reminds me of the argument people will make for like terraforming Mars or Venus or whatever. If you have if you're going to focus on recovering the ecology of a planet or artificially stimulating an ecology on a planet, why not start with Earth, where we are and where desertification is absorbing hundreds of acres every day of habitat for species that are already under tremendous pressure from overhunting, from climate change, from agriculture, competition with.
Earth is boring.
Yeah, Earth is boring. We have to go to Mars and do it. There's no cats on Mars though, so that's probably a plus. It's hard to do any kind of conservation when there's cats.
Want a future that is both biodiverse and filled with people?
Fucking bees! We could do so much with any pollinating insects. the insect decline where we're losing like 80% of insects. This channel's called Hive for a reason. I started off as an activist for this, first and foremost for saving insects from this decline. So that's kind of why this hits me so hard, because there are applications for this. All right.
Well, I just don't think that it's ever like nobody's ever going to get funding for reintroducing an extinct species back into its environment, because like it's a charity, right? If you fund that, you're not expecting to make your money back. Like
no return on investment.
Yeah, exactly. And like I don't know, just pragmatically genetically engineering something that already went extinct, and then thinking that you can introduce, like, you could grow up enough of them to like rebound the population. I'm very, very skeptical about that.
Going to have to become more efficient gardeners of the ecosystems of this world. These technologies make that possible.
So here, in the work toward de-extincting a particular species, we learn all...
Anyone want to guess what the closest living relative to the dodo bird is that I just looked up?
I know.
Some kind of pigeon, right?
It's a Nicobar pigeon, which are beautiful.
A Nicobar pigeon, the coolest freaking pigeon of all the pigeons. It's like a rainbow-colored pigeon. I have a shirt with it, with a Nicobar pigeon wings on it. It's awesome.
They're beautiful.
Like, again, just imagine stepwise individual amino acid substitutions to get from a pigeon to a dodo bird. Like, think about how difficult it was for them to get from a gray wolf to not even a dire wolf. Like, and those are 99.5% genetically identical or whatever. And like something from a pigeon to a dodo bird, and I mean, come on.
All the ways in which we can identify the precise genes necessary for key attributes, so that when we look at an endangered species and we look at its habitat changing, we can say, well, now I understand better how I might be able to help it adapt to a slightly warmer, slightly drier, slightly saltier kind of environment and prevent it from going extinct, even as we work in other areas to try and slow the change in the habitat itself.
Even as we work in other areas. So she's explaining the grift right here, that like we're doing this de-extinction of Pleistocene mammals to appeal to investors so that we can work on conservation projects for things like red wolves, I think is the central idea, which there's the scientific ethics of this, though, of presenting this as we brought a extinct species back from the dead, when you didn't. That didn't happen.
From the very beginning, Colossal has been very clear about its support for the conservation community and the goals of conservation. And it has been very active in trying to reach out to groups that are embedded in that world, as well as to reach out to populations, indigenous and others, that have been at the forefront of that conservation movement. And it's been offering its assistance, financial and technological and intellectual, to these communities from its very beginnings. So this is a company that has always seen de-extinction as its moonshot and conservation as the journey that accompanies that moonshot along the way.
Our long-term goal is to build this end-to-end de-extinction toolkit that any government, conservation group, or organization that wants to leverage the technologies for species preservation can do so for free. So currently...
I don't know if you all remember this or were even aware of it, but it's been about over a year ago. We did this stream. I did it with my friend Ring, but talking about herbivorizing the predators, basically genetically modifying predators to be herbivores to get rid of predators completely, right? And if you do that, you're driving the existing species into extinction and replacing them with genetically modified alternatives to the
Yep.
wild type, which is
Exactly.
the same thing that you're going to get here. Obviously, there's bigger ecological impacts for removing predation from an environment altogether, but I digress.
I mean, this is like the same thing as doing like GMO tomatoes or whatever to make them pesticide resistant. It's like, instead of making them resistant to pesticide, let's try to make these animals resistant to climate change so that they don't go extinct. But then you're literally making the natural animals go extinct.
And replacing them.
If it goes all according to plan, and that their actual genetic creations are more fit for the environment and more viable than the natural species, then the natural species will go extinct and get replaced with the designed ones.
That's how evolution fucking works. That's why we have cows and don't have oryxes today.
Yeah.
Well, it's not how evolution works in that they don't get replaced by designed replacements.
Well, that's why
That's
why I use the oryx for as an example, because cows are GMO animals. Really, they are. They've just been done. They did it they genetically modified them the old-fashioned way, but they're still genetically modified. We selectively bred them for thousands of years, so that's why I use that as an example, just to clarify.
We're actually working with Bridget Von Holt and a team of folks on the red wolf, which is a critically endangered wolf species here in America, and we have a lot of biobank samples from it. We can now do genetic analysis to understand which is the most genetically diverse founder line.
That is a coyote. Is this the lab that's supposed to be bringing these back? Because if they take a gene sample of this, they're not going to get a red wolf.
I mean, are they about to mention like they interbreed with coyotes or something?
I'll give them the benefit and let me see.
We can now do genetic analysis to understand which is the most genetically diverse founder lines that have been frozen, and then we can use our technology to
That's a coyote too.
Clone those wolves.
That's a red
and
wolf.
bring them back, so we can not only just reintroduce and make more red wolves, but reintroduce the right red wolves with the right level of genetic diversity, so that that population can thrive again.
The ability to introduce more.
Some of those, the first two images were coyotes, and then it showed red wolves. I don't know why. Maybe they meant to say something about.
No, it's just whoever edited this probably didn't know what they were doing. Like whoever's doing the B-roll.
Okay.
But
well, I'll give it benefit.
I just want to know. I just want to know how expensive per wolf would this be? Like they have all this high and pie in the sky stuff. It's like if their like final price tag is like several $100,000 to over $1 million per wolf that they create, I mean, how pragmatic is that going to be to repopulate wild environments? Where are you going to get the money for all of this? Just is that you're going to cover all of this excellent work that you're doing by selling dodos to zoos?
They haven't even shown us that these things are fertile. Generally, hybrids have low fertility rates. So, I mean, as far as I know...
I mean, yeah, they said that they used the same technique as they did to clone Dolly the sheep. Well, what happened to Dolly, right?
Yeah, where's Dolly today?
More genetic diversity into the red wolf population because of the colossal direwolf project is enormous, because what it does is it strengthens the red wolf population for the future, and it expands its numbers as well as increases its resilience.
I love red wolves that have big Dumbo ears like that, though, because they live in a warmer climate, so they have bigger ears to exude more heat.
Oh, that's cool.
But they got like they look like derpy. That's why people mix them up with coyotes, though. You can tell by the snout shape the difference, but.
Its ability to withstand the next accident, the next disease, the next catastrophe.
Wolves are ecosystem engineers. They are such an important presence in American ecosystems that they change the way everything beneath them is configured, right down to the grasses and trees that grow along streams.
This guy is the woo guy, I think. Like, his puka shell necklace should have been the first giveaway, and maybe his ponytail. But he's gonna get spiritual with us. Y'all ready for a spiritual journey?
Oh boy. Native people clearly regarded wolves as teachers, as totem animals. as animals that they modeled themselves after. And one of the reasons for that is
That's a coyote.
because American native people never really domesticated ungulate herding animals, and so the wolf was not thought of as a menace.
Then what's an alpaca? What's a llama?
Yeah. I mean, that's mostly from North America, I guess.
Okay. But they did have
That's
dogs.
half of the America.
Yeah, they did have
half
dogs in
the
North
Americas?
America that were used as pack animals, though, and herd animals. I mean, they actually dogs would actually carry stuff, and dog sleds and such.
Are a threat.
How come they don't actually have a Native American person telling us what they think about this? I'm curious, I probably would bet that most of them probably don't appreciate what Colossal Biosciences is doing here.
Right, because the wolves that even the wolves that would be associated with Native American populations are the ones that went extinct in the last 200 years or so, not the ones that went extinct 10,000 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
There's no indigenous people group that's around today, or even was around 200 years ago, that ever saw a dire wolf. Right? They were ancestral groups, but looks like we got the aimbot crowd joining from Mark Reed.
Howdy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
By contrast, the people who arrived from the old world, Europeans in particular, had been herding animals that they had domesticated, sheep and goats and cattle and so forth, for 8,000 years. And so for many thousands of years, old worlders had thought of wolves as a menace and had folded those ideas really into their philosophies and religions with respect to wolves.
Let's see. Gotta appeal to the spiritualism and to North American wolves didn't have a predator drive towards people like the European wolves did either. That kind of happens when an animal evolves alongside of a species, as opposed to being suddenly introduced to a new species, right? Like you'll see, like with island animals where they aren't used to humans, so they like walk right up to them. Like the dodo, for example, was famously depicted
island tameness.
Yes, and the North American wolves, they wouldn't have evolved alongside humans because they were here, hundreds of thousands of years in the Americas before even the indigenous people that live here crossed the Bering Land Bridge, or came by along the coast of the Bering Land Bridge, I guess I should say. I'm not sure which of those prevailing theories is currently in the lead, but one way or the other, was an interior corridor or a coastal migration. The dire wolves and the gray wolves of North America were not exposed to humans for hundreds of thousands of years, so they would have reacted to us differently. All right, I'm ranting about
Native Americans came here in submarines.
Oh yeah, like in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
We're a part of the evolutionary stream of the planet. We're kin to every other species out there. I think we have a responsibility to correct our mistakes from the past.
Right now we're sitting in the middle of this beautiful, secure, expansive ecological preserve that our direwolves call home. So even though this looks like a little...
Would you call... Never mind.
Piece of the wild, this is actually a really well thought out, secured facility. In addition to multiple layers of containment or fencing that help keep the wolves safe and happy and healthy right here in their preserve, it also keeps people away. In addition to keeping people away, we're always monitoring the animals and the area around them. So
I'm just wondering, like, if you look at these look at their eyes, right? They got these blue eyes, these blue-gray eyes. Like, did they select for that too? I kind of feel like they did, like going for that ghost from Game of Thrones look. Give these guys these, because right here anyway, the eyes look really blue.
Well, I think Ghost had red eyes, right? He's an albino. But
Did Ghost have red eyes in the movie?
I
Or the
think
show?
in the books he's supposed to be an albino, so his eyes would be red. But I could be misremembering. But I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I
I
don't know about how this compares to like normal, but they said that there were 14 sites that they altered, right? And a bunch of them had to do with just the color of the fur, and then one of them had to do with the size. Even though so far these are not bigger than gray wolves, I think.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen any measurements saying that these are any bigger than a gray wolf.
Yeah, I haven't either.
We've been working with American Humane to try to identify what are the key welfare components that we should be focusing on so that we can make sure that our dire wolves experience optimal welfare.
They're not dire wolves, but since they're gray wolves, it should be pretty easy to figure out what you need to do to get them taken care of, because gray wolves are native to a lot of different landscapes in modern times, so it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. They want to pretend that these are actual dire wolves when they're not. They're not going to have
That's the marketing.
They're not going to have actual dire wolf needs, though. Yeah, but when it's going to bring this the welfare of the animals is what I'm concerned about there. You know what I mean?
You know, next time they're going to like genetically engineer a gray wolf to be red, and they're gonna say, "Hey, we created Clifford the big red dog."
Oh, well, I didn't see that coming. I thought you were gonna say, "Oh, we saved the red wolf," but yeah, Clifford the big red dog, love it.
Being the first of their species to return to Earth in the last 12,000 years, there obviously weren't mothers that were readily available to gestate our dire wolves. So our dire wolves were raised through surrogacy.
They've never
as
been on
domestic
Earth
dog.
before.
Yeah, this is not a species that's ever existed before. Yeah,
Well, it's the same species. It's not like they even created a new species.
Yeah,
it's just it's a mutant variety that has never before existed on Earth.
it's almost like they created their own haplogroup, you know, their own an artificial haplogroup. That'd be the best way to describe it, as opposed to
Or
even
I
as a
could just
breed.
say-
Go ahead.
A breed of wolf. Like it's a new dog breed. Congratulations, it's a designer dog breed.
Yeah,
I've seen some people online suggesting just call them Canis lupus dirus if you really want to.
Yeah, I can actually get on board with that. I'd actually they'd rather call it Canis lupus x dirus though, just to notate that it's genetically modified, that it's made with not naturally hybridized, but artificially hybridized DNA between an artificially modified wolf genome and a wild type wolf genome. When I say wild type, like we're talking about freaking ball pythons.
So I think I am actually gonna have to go now. There's some things I still have to do tonight before I go to bed. But thanks for having me on, Bree. This was really fun.
Yeah,
and Dog, good to see you as always.
All right.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you for showing up, Grayson.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. And we'll finish this out. It's like we got like 2.5 minutes left, and we'll probably wrap up too.
Alrighty.
The welfare of that domestic dog, of that surrogate, is as important to us as it was the dire wolf. So we began working with American Humane Society to find best homes for these dogs after they raised their litters.
I do think we have a moral obligation to help restore the ecosystems and to heal the planet. I think we have that obligation both because in many cases it is damage we have caused, and also because I think that even if it's damage that was done by some event out of our control, we are stewards of...
There's that a religious appeal too. We're stewards of the natural world, and we're not. We're just we're an aberration of the natural world.
I mean, if you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible, I don't think it's bad to include.
As far as marketing, no, but as far as science goes, are we stewards?
Yeah.
Of this earth and of this environment. And that is something that transcends politics, it transcends religions. You know, it was Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, who really founded the modern conservation movement's political underpinnings. It was a Democrat, Franklin Roosevelt, who built up the Conservation Corps. It is Christianity that, in its concept of dominion over the earth, includes this notion of responsible stewardship. It is Hinduism that celebrates the idea of the diversity of the biota. It is Islam that thinks of humans
Wow,
as
she really is just trying to appeal to every people group, isn't she?
She's like, no matter where you're from or what your bend is, what your faith is, I guess, we wanna appeal to you.
And it is Judaism with this concept of tikkun olam and repairing the world. Across all these different varieties of religion and politics, we find the same impulse, which is that we are part of something larger than ourselves, and of course we have to take care of it.
I mean, that's true. We are part of a larger ecological net of, but we're not. For the most part, we're bad for it, but. Because we are too good at modifying our environment to fit our needs.
Yeah.
Care of it, because we have the ability to do so.
Darwin essentially confirmed with science what I think indigenous people had long been trying to tell us, which is we are part of the kinship network, in Darwin's instance, the evolutionary river of Earth. We are right in the middle of it. History has an arc. It's got a trajectory. And that trajectory is pointing us towards a more optimistic outlook, it seems to me. I mean, there are a lot of instances where, to be sure, one can become discouraged and give up. But my reading of history is that there's cause for optimism, and an organization like Colossal, to me, is one of the things that gives me hope.
Again, these canines are super cute, but they're not dire wolves.
Yeah.
All right. That was a couple of videos from good old Colossal about what is essentially a marketing campaign to try to get funding, which, I can appreciate to an extent, trying to get funding for conservation efforts, but there's a certain level of integrity that's required in the scientific community that I think we're missing out on here. But that'll be my final thoughts on it. What are your final thoughts tonight?
Well, I mean, it's honestly kind of been a roller coaster, because, first time you hear about it, I got so excited. And when I watched the video, like the first video I saw, my jaw dropped, because
you see them. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Don't feel bad about that, because I actually had a real tear, because I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I would see this before in my lifetime, right? I knew that it was going to be possible at some point, but I thought I'd be long gone. And it turns out that it, even if it is possible in my lifetime, this isn't it. This isn't it, but...
Yeah, like, if they actually brought back, like, a real direwolf, I mean, sure, there are ethical considerations and whatnot, and you can't release it to the wild, because its niche doesn't exist. Well, its niche kind of exists, but there's already something living there.
It's been replaced,
so,
yeah. And it's going to be detrimental to the...
Indigenous something.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep talking over you.
No, it's okay. My big problem with what they're doing is just kind of lying to the public, to their donors. Like, they're marketing these as real direwolves, and they're just not, and that's my big problem.
Yeah, it's the lying, that we expect a higher level of integrity from our scientific community. All right. Well, do you got anything coming up you want to plug before we wrap up here?
Kinda. I ran a poll on my channel recently, and apparently people want to see vlogs of when I go out fossil hunting, so I'll hopefully get one finished editing tonight about my adventures yesterday, and I'll post that tomorrow. I'm working on a new series where I go over the geology of different places around the world. Episode 1 was about my home state of Iowa. Looks like the next episode's going to be about Tennessee, so Yeah.
Yeah, I
talk dinosaurs.
I saw your thing about Iowa. I hadn't watched it yet, but Iowa has some interesting geology. The Upper Midwest has some interesting geology in general. So it's kind of your stomping ground. So if you follow this guy when he's talking about dinosaurs, because he's like on the cutting edge. I think the only time I ever beat him on anything was with maybe the Macraensis Tyrannosaur, but if it was only by like hours.
Oh, you mean like talking about it?
It was with hearing about it, I guess. Maybe you heard about it before me. I don't remember.
The last year's been a blur.
We're all in a little nerd group of people, but yeah, when it comes to dinosaurs, this is the guy. I'm usually the bug girl.
Good. Well, actually, speaking of dinosaurs, I am going to be streaming with a certain dapper dinosaur later this week.
Yes, the dapper.
We're going to be covering answers in Genesis, spreading some misinformation about dinosaurs. So that'll be fun, hopefully.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here, though. Appreciate you for coming in here. Appreciate you, Grayson, for popping in as well. Grayson had to dip early, but just a couple minutes early. This was a fun stream, and I'm glad we're able to shed some light on this for anybody who might have been taken in by this grift. I don't know what else to call it besides a grift. All right. So please remember to take care and be kind, and we'll see you next time.